Hello everybody and welcome back to Evolving Vibes, the community for witches, pagans, spiritualists, and everybody in between. So for today, what I wanted to do was revisit my daily planner slash book of mirrors. If you remember in the video that we saw a while back, right up over here, I introduced this to you and what I was planning on doing with it. And my goal was, of course, to make myself a daily planner, but along with that, record my daily feelings and my daily journal as far as how things went, what might have happened, my reactions versus responses to it, and things of that nature. Henceforth becoming a book of mirrors. Not to be confused with my book of shadows right on over here. They're slightly different, and we'll talk a little bit about the differences. So let's begin, shall we? So to start, Book of Shadows is where we record all of our magical activity. We record spells, we record things that vibe with our practice, and we utilize that within our practice. Maybe it's for making witchy balls, maybe it's for casting a spell, or how we actually celebrate each and every Sabbath. So a Book of Shadows is all about our personal practice and what we do within that practice. Whereas a Book of Mirrors, on the other hand, is our own personal journal. It's recording, in a lot of ways, our growth, our spiritual path, what we do, how we react, how we respond to situations. And it's a much more in-depth look onto us, with the one goal being that we're going to be growing forward, increasing our vibe, and moving ourselves where we feel we want to be. And that's the biggest difference I feel between the two. Let me know in the comments if you feel there's other differences besides that. But for me, that's the biggest differences between the two. Now, with this book, what I've been doing is, I'm not going to show you everything, of course, because it's personal. But what I do is throughout the month, before the month begins, I write down different types of quotes that really vibe with me. And so the pages that I'm going to for that one specific day already have some things written into it regarding quotes, some things that I find that stir my soul, that sort of thing. What we do with this, though, is we utilize it throughout our day. Obviously for a schedule, but along with that, when we're going through something, or when I say we, I mean me, when I'm going through something and I'm feeling kind of not my norm, I write it down. So if I'm feeling upset about something today, I'm going to write that down. And then I'm going to delve deeper as to, well, why is that upsetting me? What about this situation is what I find upsetting? And how has that empowerment over me? And what I've been able to do over the past month that I've been doing this is identify some things that are little bits of triggers for me. And as I delve deeper into, well, why is this a trigger? I find too that it comes down from something inside me, from something when I was growing up, or from previous experiences. And what I've been able to do with that is sort of disengage a lot of the triggers that have predominantly been there throughout my life. Now, it's only been a month, and as I said before, this is an ongoing practice that we do, but I have been able to find that throughout this past month, there's been a lot of different little things that I've been able to tweak that have caused greater changes within me. How I respond to things versus react to things. I find myself very rarely now being a reactionary. Most of the time, I'll take things in, I'll write them down, and as time is allowed, I'll respond to the situation versus reacting to the situation. And I could give you tons and tons of examples, and trust me, I could, but I don't want to make this into a long-ass video, so I'm just going to keep it relatively brief. So you've noticed that for the past month, I've not been on the channel all that much. There's been a lot of stuff going on with the new moon opening up, but there's been a lot of other things as well, with the holiday season approaching and such. But right beyond Thanksgiving Day, actually, a friend of mine borrowed my car, and it got totaled. So most of you guys are like, whoa, someone totaled your car. How did you react to that? Well, quite honestly, I had been putting a lot of intent into the universe for the past couple of months to clear my path of things that no longer serve my vibe and to open myself up for further abundance and prosperity going into the new year. So when my car got totaled, the very first thing that I was concerned about, of course, was anybody hurt. And luckily, nobody was hurt. It was all just a materialistic thing and easily replaceable, of course. And long story short, I was pretty proud of myself of the response I had because it really didn't bother me. There were a lot of things that come along when you total a car, dealing with insurance companies, trying to get a rental, and in this day and age, post-pandemic, or even continuing with the pandemic now, finding a vehicle. Because I'm not sure if you've been out car shopping recently, but it's impossible to find a quality vehicle at a good price because there's no negotiations anymore right now. Everything's in demand, so whatever the sticker price is pretty much what you're paying for it. One thing I didn't want to do was step backwards, since the universe was opening up this path for me to clear the way of a higher car payment and a lot of other things, was to go out there and spend that much money on another vehicle and have another high car payment. So I wanted to wait a little bit and I wanted to work at it, which is what I actually did. I put my intent down exactly what it is I wanted in a vehicle. I also wrote down the things I'm willing to accept in a vehicle. And I also wrote down the things I will not accept in a vehicle. In other words, the deal breakers. I didn't want to have a high car payment. I was preferably not going to have a car payment if I could help it. And I certainly didn't want to get myself back into that trap of another new vehicle, another high car payment, another high insurance, la 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 la, all of that being said. So I put that intent out there. With that, I really focused on what I wanted and how I was going to get it. The deal situation presented itself to me, and I was able to find the car exactly what I wanted at a much less price than I was going to be planning on paying. So the universe came through for me on that, and of course I was thankful for the potential that I was able to receive, and lo and behold, I got myself a new car. Not a brand new car, because that was one of the things I didn't want to do. I didn't want to drive off the lot and automatically have a depreciation. So I got myself an older car. It's a 2011. No depreciation on it and no car payment on it, really. Now, getting back to my response versus reactions, of course, the human experience when someone totals your car is to obviously make sure no one got hurt, but then try to get all these topical questions answered. How it happened, why it happened, what were you doing, how fast were you going? But none of that really mattered to me. What mattered to me was no one got hurt. So I focused all of my energy not on having a reaction, but responding to the situation itself in a response that was going to be good for me. Getting the insurance coverage, making sure that I had my rental, making sure that I was on top of each and every aspect of that specific journey so that I could, at the very end of it all, manifest what I wanted to manifest. In doing so, I saved the relationship. I didn't get into an argument or an issue with my closest friend in the world, and it all worked out. Now, that's just one example. As I go through my book, which I do on a regular basis, and look at situations that I experienced within and how I responded versus how I reacted, I found myself over the past month and a half of using this journal growing. And that's the most exciting aspect of it. I found myself actually increasing my vibe, actually growing, actually evolving into the person that I want to be. And so it's been an invaluable tool for me. Now, let's talk about how this can work for you and what you can do with this. So, first and foremost, I definitely recommend the Moleskine General. This one goes all the way into January 2022. So it's a nice long planner, which is exactly what I wanted. It's hard copy, which is exactly what I like as well. But that's my vibe. That's not your vibe. Whatever works for you, works for you. The important aspect of it is using it. So what do we put in it? Great question. So this book is a book of mirrors. So it's all about reflections, right? So we want to write down our day-to-days, what our schedule is, what we're actually doing, but then we want to write down goals that we may have for that day, things that we may want to infuse into our day. Maybe it's magic, maybe it's intent, maybe it's making a certain amount of people giggle, smile, laugh, whatever it might be. We want to put down our positive goals. And we also want to write down what made our vibe, what didn't make our vibe. In my book, and like I said, I'm not going to show you page for page because there's a lot of personal information in there about my day-to-days and my feelings. So in my book, what I've actually incorporated were little smiles, little frowns. If something made me happy, obviously going to smile. If something was triggering a response out of me that I wouldn't give it, I put a little frown. But then I went a little bit deeper with the frowns as to, well, why did this happen? Why did it make me feel this way? Why was my initial reaction going to be this? And how did blocking that reaction turn into a response? And how did that help me as well? So as I put all this down, I needed to collect the data, which is why this video has been a long time coming. In putting that data together, it gives me the opportunity of reflection, of going back over my day-to-days for the past week on a Sunday and looking at my reactions that were potentials and my responses, which were actually planned. And looking at the difference between the two and how did having a response greater affect me and my vibe versus if I would have just had a knee-jerk reaction. So that really helped me greatly in understanding myself, in understanding some of the things that actually transpired through my week and how responding versus reacting to various situations had such a greater impact on my positivity versus if I just had a knee-jerk reaction and how that could have really affected a lot of other people. So that was one aspect of how it helped me. Now, the question you're probably having right about now is, well, can't we do the same thing with a digital means, keeping track on our telephone, in our calendar? And yeah, you could. Now, why I don't recommend doing that personally. Number one, when you're carrying this around, it's a constant reminder that you're doing self-work and that you are working on that mirror self. And so just holding this really does help with enchantment. It really does help with you saying, hey, I'm not reacting to this. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to think about things and then I'm going to respond because that's the way I want to handle my life. And that in itself is empowerment, and that in itself makes a huge difference. Now, the other aspect of why paper and pen versus digital for me works better and why I recommend it is when we're writing things down, we're touching paper. And the paper in the Moleskine is really fine and really wonderful to touch. You're hearing that pen hitting that paper, scribing words into that paper. Words are sigils, sigils are spells. That all being said, it makes it much more magical. But more importantly, from a neuroscience standpoint, when we're writing things down, we're using another portion of our brain. We're helping ourselves to rewire how we think, how we receive information, and how we process that information to further put it out. Makes a huge difference. Some people call that critical thinking. So when we're using a journal and when we're writing things down, we're actually helping ourselves develop our critical thinking component within ourselves. And critical thinking is huge important for growth, for communication, and for really allowing yourself to tailor your life the way you want it to be. No longer are you chasing the tail like a dog, trying to figure things out, apologizing and making up for reactions that you had when you could have actually just sat back and created yourself a response that was perfect for the moment, that was easy enough for another person to understand, and that potentially helped guide that situation into a situation that was actually for your benefit. So there's definitely a lot of really valuable ways of doing this, but for me, the most valuable way is definitely doing it the old-fashioned pen and paper in a book type manner. So what is critical thinking, and why is it so important to us? Well, for me, my personal belief is critical thinking is essential for being a witch. Why? Because, well, society doesn't really teach critical thinking. And what critical thinking is literally breaking things down and dissecting them and looking at them for what they are at their face value, and then rebuilding it and really personalizing it to your own beliefs, your own thoughts, and your own practice. As we do critical thinking and as we do record it, it helps us to grow. But along with that, as I said a little bit earlier, it does help rewire pathways in our brain that take away the learned reactions that we've had growing up as kids. Since we were children, we really mirrored whatever reactions and situations that our parents, that our friends, that our siblings actually experienced. That's where the word stress comes from. To me, I think stress in that situation of stress is a learned behavior. That's my personal opinion, because growing up, anytime my parents got into a situation that they identified as stress, they actually acted in a very specific manner. I don't think it was a very high vibe, but that's just me now. But as a kid, I learned that if something was late, this is how you reacted to it. If someone made you upset, this is how you reacted to it. And I think we can all share that personal human experience. So now, having worked through critical thinking, I've learned a few things. If something's late, there may be reasons beyond our understanding for that. So let's take a step back and not focus on what and why it's late, but focus on how we're going to manage it as it comes forward. What are we going to do in the meantime? What is happening right now that we have empowerment over that can subsidize what's going on because something else is late? Someone disenchants you. In other words, they disappoint you. All right, some reactions can be really powerful and really damaging. So instead of taking those reactions, sit back and say, hey, this person disappointed me. How must they feel about disappointing me? What happened in their life that may have caused this? Because this person doesn't tend to like to disappoint others. So maybe they need something from me because of this disappointment. Maybe they're feeling so poorly right now that they just need me not only to understand, but to help them through a situation that they're going through, which may have led up to this very specific disenchantment or disappointment. So you see where I'm getting all of this from? It really changes how we behave. It changes our behaviors, but in doing so, it really helps control our realm. It helps us control where we are in life, how we're going to respond to situations in life, but along with that, it's going to help us help others. And that's the empath in me, looking at it from that standpoint. Now, we've talked about being an empath, and we talked about some of the positive aspects of it, as well as the not so positive aspects of it. So I just want to delve a little bit into that right now. So the empath in me, when someone does something or is going through something, is to get in there, absorb, and heal them. And I've learned since then that it's most important for me to maintain myself as the observer versus the participant. And I think for you guys as well, the more often you recast yourself as an observer versus a participant, it's going to help you not only grow yourself, but it's going to help you help others a lot more cleanly. So that being said, when something happens that I'm disenchanted about, disappointed in, I look at it from an observatory standpoint. Okay, this is a situation that I find disappointing. Let's observe it. Let's see what is going on. Let's look at it from a clinical standpoint. And that's where this book comes in, because I'll write down very specific things about that situation that I find disappointing. And then I'll write down some of the things that may have led to that disappointment. And invariably what I found is people don't generally just go out there to try and disappoint you. Not the people closest in your circle. If they do, they're probably not going to be in your circle for very long. And again, that's just another way of managing, observing versus participating in these situations. However, as you observe, if you do say, hey, this person is feeling horrible about disappointing, this person's feeling horrible about this situation, it's an observed observation. And now we can look at it from that standpoint of, well, how can we make this better for them? In doing so, how is it going to make things better for me? How am I going to feel after I help them through this situation, through this feeling, and move forward? And it's empowering. It truly is. And it is huge helpful for us because we're no longer taking on that energy and that emotion of disappointment. We're now taking on that energy and that empowerment of changing the situation, changing the state of that person's in, changing our own state because of our critical thinking, because of we're looking at it from an observation standpoint versus a participating standpoint. And it makes a huge difference, and it does help us grow, and most importantly, it helps others out as well. So some of the things that I would recommend putting inside your book, first and foremost, obviously, your schedule. Some of the goals that you may have for that day, some form of daily reflection, which is where I put those quotes in, because those quotes are designed to help me reflect each and every day. If I'm going through a situation during that day and I need time for pause and I need time to reflect so that I can respond versus react, I've got an empowering quote. I've got an empowering quote within that book that's going to help me with that task. Another thing to consider is, yeah, we're putting down daily reflections, but we're also going to put down our daily visceral feelings. What happened, why we might have felt this way, what might have triggered that feeling this day, and how we planned on responding versus reacting to that. So those daily reflections start to grow as we start doing this more and more frequently. And that turns into looking at it over a period of time. I personally like looking at it at the end of the day. And then what I like to do is on a Sunday is go through my week and look at what happened, how I recorded it, what my journal states, as well as what I might have done for a response versus a reaction. Personally, when I'm recording in my journal on a daily basis, what I like to do is keep a couple of things in mind. I like to keep in mind the right action to take rather than the right belief. And that's important to understand. There's a difference between actions and beliefs. We can believe something. However, our beliefs can influence our actions. Look at Christianity as an example of that. You can believe that there is an all-empowering God. You can believe that this God had a son named Jesus Christ, and that it's full of love, light, and all of that, right? You can believe that. But what about the right action? Now, in the name of God, in the name of Jesus Christ, it just definitely wasn't a right action to go out and burn us. It wasn't a right action to go out there and torture us into saying that we were witches and that sort of thing. Same thing goes. You can believe that there is a God. You can believe that there is a Jesus Christ, but it's not the right action if you're not allowing gay couples to get married, if you're not allowing gay couples to go buy a wedding cake in your bakery because you're Christian. So you see where I'm going with this? There's a difference between a right action and a right belief. And it's important for us to understand that, and it's important for us to record things as they're happening so that we can dissect that and say, was this an action that I took because of a belief? Or was this an action I took because it was the right thing for me, for that situation, and most importantly, for that other individual involved in that situation? So it really does get deep, and it really does help us dig way down deep inside of our darker selves, and really helps us do that shadow work and helps us grow both spiritually as well as a person in this realm. And it really does help others closest to us because they're no longer walking around on eggshells wondering how we're going to react to the situation. When they understand that, hey, they take their time, they look at things from a 360-degree standpoint, and then they dissect it and they respond appropriately, you're going to get people to share more with you. You're going to get people to open up more with you. And you're going to get people to look at you as a more fair, defined, concise individual versus a reactionary. So as I said, I didn't want this video to take up a whole day. It could, trust me. Number one, I'm really wordy, but number two, I'm really passionate about this topic, so I could spend a couple of hours at least doing this. But I didn't want to. What I wanted to do was give you an update on this book and give you an idea of what I've been doing with it for the past month and a half and how it's helped me grow. And again, something coming up for the new year that you're going to be able to do as well. You can take your newest day planner for 2022 and you can make it into your book of mirrors. You can add things to it. You can customize it to make it your own. But most importantly, you can use it on a daily basis to help you grow spiritually and to help you grow as a human being. And most importantly, out of all of this, it's going to help you control your magical realm. What's better than that, right? So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I look forward to seeing you again in another video. Make sure, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, leave me that comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're doing a book of mirrors. If you haven't yet, let me know if you're planning on starting it and if you need some help. You can always email me. You can always text me for additional information or some additional ideas. I'm really approachable and easily contacted, so feel free. I'm not just this face on another side of a camera lens. You can reach out to me and I can be your spiritual friend. So until next time, folks, as always, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for being a part of this community. And thank you for giving me all of the energy that you've been giving me. I appreciate it and I love you all. Until next time, as always, please be safe, be well, and be blessed.